Okay. So there's a pretty brief discussion of metrics. We'll spend a fair amount of time on this module, this part of the module, which is how do you transform to SRE practice? And now bear in mind, the pyramid we talked about in the video already gives you some ideas of how you transform to SRE practice, but it's not the only way. There are many patterns for implementing SRE. And there are many factors to consider when you're doing a transformation, your organization, current state, what is your current maturity as well as target maturity. Maybe you don't have a goal to become, like a highest level maturity. That's an organization choice. And what are your key priorities in a lot of different dimensions of priorities? What are you trying to accomplish? What are the highest priority goals? So understanding what your goals are. Yeah, and bear in mind that there's a lot of different disciplines and frameworks to think about. System thinking is certainly got to be part of when you're organizing a transformation. You want to think big picture. Think about how the system effects are going to be as you make changes, and approach the transformation from an engineering perspective, not just haphazard, but a disciplined approach. Whether you follow the pyramid in the other video or some other approach, but have a disciplined approach that can be explained to all the teams so they can buy into it. They may not agree with the exact approach, but as long as everybody knows what it is and aligned to it, then that's good. There's the word balance is very important. As you mature, you want to keep things in balance. You may get, having the best tools with the wrong culture and the wrong, process. It's not balance. You want to keep all of those dimensions in balance as you mature, and you may, as I say, evolve the tool choices or the processes, or even the culture and people training and so on, as you evolve towards higher levels of capability of SRE. At every level, you may have some trade-offs to do, and you may have costs, limitations, and other factors. So that all has to be kept in balance. In general, you're trying to balance stability against speed. You're trying to improve the deployment of innovative business, business improvement, improving innovative capabilities. But you don't want to go so fast that things are going to break as you introduce too much at once. A lot of things to consider, the quality of what's being delivered. Are you measuring that? Is it getting better or worse? The service itself, the quality, so not just the product, but the overall service. Are people happy? Customers, internal clients, your own people, staff, your efficiency. In general, are staff engaged? Do they buy into the strategy? Is it working? Do you need to tune it? So these are some patterns and thoughts when you're implementing a transformation. Understanding customer expectations is certainly a big part of it. And when I say customer, it may not necessarily only being the paying customer, or certainly that's one of the important ones. You can have other stakeholders as well. So it could be people that are having to do audits, people that are in QA, that are testing. There are many possible clients, developers themselves, and so on. So understand their needs, assess the current level of capability against their needs and interests. Prioritize their needs and interests, then create a solution, starting with a kind of a strategic level of the solution, and then refine it down to an actual implementation roadmap. Then actually implement the roadmap, inspect and adapt the solution. Bear in mind that just like anything else, you're probably not going to get it perfect the first time. So this will be like an iterative loop. And once it's in place and working well, then don't leave it alone. You need to keep watching it, and continuous improvements. Things will change over time, sometimes very rapidly. So you want to keep an eye on how well your solution is working for all the different aspects of the SRE practices. There's a lot of other dimensions to cover. The organization vision. How does the SRE vision fit with the organization vision overall? Does it satisfy business goals and support that? Are you building on expertise, utilizing the expertise you have? Where do you need to grow expertise? Maybe training, critical success factors. You know, you need to know the underlying key points. There's a lot to understand, and you can't measure literally everything, but you certainly should try to understand what are the main factors that are going to determine whether or not your transformation is successful. A good place to look at that really are SLOs, maybe some key ones that you want to point out in particular to use as a way to measure the effectiveness of your transformation. Yeah, and that also can vary even within a big, enterprise. You may have different kinds of organizations of different sizes. Different teams may be, structured in different ways with different skills and types of people, depending on what the product or service is. Maybe one product may be very heavy database oriented, and the other one, more web UI interface, and there's a lot of different things there to think about. You may have some specific, competitive initiatives that you're trying to support. Maybe the team is got a distributed architecture. That's fine. All needs to be considered. And maybe some teams, some applications will have a particular technology stack different than others. All of those things are factors in your plan. In general, you're trying to get outcomes that are, a better organizational structure that's more efficient, faster return on investment, reduce costs, which is typically going to happen because things are happening more efficiently and faster. Usually a reduction in the lead time, for example, is where you're going to get the biggest benefit of cost reduction. And then leadership, autonomy and leadership, where you don't have to have, you've got quick decision making going on because you've got the right kind of structure and tooling in place and information flowing. So many factors to consider in your transformation. It can be overwhelming if you don't have a structured approach to do that. So the next couple of slides, we'll talk about some structures. Again, there's no one way, but these are some approaches that, that do work. Similar to I have my own process that I use for SRE transformation. It's not really explicitly covered in the course, but it's somewhat similar. So here you're looking at several, thinking about a kind of a maturity level for SRE practice. And by the way, there is no such thing as a standard maturity level for SRE practice. The pyramid in the video is an example. This is another example. And then against every level, you can define some attributes. For example, what does CI look like at level 5 versus level 0? Automated deployments, test automation, automated provisioning, architecture, agile. So I'm not going to read every one of these boxes. You can do that on your own if you want to stop the video. But generally speaking, the message really of the chart is, it's good to have an agreed view on what your maturity levels are. You're not going to get from 0 to 5 in one step. So that means you're going to have to go through some other steps. So it's very good to have some definitions that everybody can agree to. Make sure you get agreement as to what you're trying to accomplish. And that way it makes it a lot easier to transform, right? You can go from, let's say you're going from level 1 to level 3. Well, it'll be pretty clear what you need to do if you have a matrix like this. So don't try to boil the ocean. You may have some applications that are in different levels of transformation than others, and that may make total sense for a particular application. Don't try to make everyone, absolutely consistent at the same time necessarily. That is an approach. Some people try to do it. It can work, but it generally doesn't. I found that generally speaking, you're better off to kind of pick initially one or two applications to focus on as sort of models, and then build up maturity and to kind of prioritize building up those ones as up the maturity levels. And then the other applications can learn from those. And that's why I would call it a model rather than just, an MVP. It's intended to be something that all the other applications can learn from. Certainly benchmark things as you go along. You need to have ways to determine, are you really at that level, and how's it going in terms of performance? Are your SLOs, you're performing better against your SLOs and other performance indicators we talked about in the last chart. to automate those measurements so that you're not spending all your time just trying to measure these things. Assessments is a great way to kind of see where you are at any point in time. Usually these are like a series of questions against some good practices. And you can literally ask your team or your leaders or different people, that's for all the different things you're assessing. Let's say it's security improvements. You can have a series of questions that will determine whether you're at level 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then you can produce a radar chart like this that across all the different pillars of practice, if you like, where are you? And that gives you a nice visual to see where you are at any point in time, where you've got some practice areas that are exceeding others. In general, you want to keep things balanced, so it should be a kind of a circle that's expanding as you evolve rather than a peak diagram like this. Unless there's some very explicit reason why one particular pillar is extreme is viewed to be even more important. But our radar chart's a nice way to quickly show your progress. And these assessments are typically done not not just once, but as you go through your different levels of transformation. I find most organizations that are really progressing do an assessment about every 4 to 6 months. So they implement a bunch of changes and kind of see where they are.